All right, founders, it is time for another pitch deck critique and review. And this time I've got something special. I dusted off this pitch deck for my startup that I used to raise 157K pre-seed, and that was 4 years ago. And I thought it'd be lots of fun to roast my own deck. I'm not going to make any special comments about this because this is going to get cringy. Before we continue, my name is Ed Kang, seven-time funded founder with 2 exits. That just means I failed a bunch of times. For your benefit, I like to use videos like this and my YouTube channel to help early stage founders, especially early stage founders, work on raising funds like pre-seed, seed stage, and get that almighty traction to help you raise those funds. And like I said, this is my deck that I use, and it was 4 years ago. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I pitched the deck originally and talk about it and the reason I was able to raise the $157,000. And then I decided to update it so that it is current to what I know today and how I would do this pitch deck today so you can see the improvement. And to show you, even though I make these videos and like to pretend I know what I'm talking about, even I make a bunch of mistakes, and there's always improvement that you can make to make yourself a better founder and make yourself better at pitching and raising funds. Here we go with the problem statement. Human brain potential falls vastly short on this planet because most people lack access to social and emotional education. Like I said, this is totally cringe. This one, it's going to be tough for me to get to this because I'm pretty hard on myself and I hold myself to a much higher standard these days. But let's talk about human brain potential. What's missing is exactly how much. Like, how much brain potential falls short on this planet? What are the pain points? So we've got a lot of questions here. And this whole statement, short on this planet, this is a really wishy-washy, grandiose problem statement. Sure, it's exact in terms of where we want to be headed, but I'm going to give this slide pretty much a C+, being kind to myself. Next is the solution. We make brain training games that teach social emotional intelligence and play them online with children, parents, and leaders all around the world. Once again, cringy, all around the world. Okay, we don't have to put that there in the solution statement. Want to make it really simple so that the investor understands the issue with this solution statement. It is not attached to the problem statement very well. You will always hear from me. You want to make the problem statement clear, but you want to make the solution statement the inverse, related to the problem statement. I'm going to show you how I did this. Now, in this deck, for some reason, I added another solution statement. This is solution slide number 2, and it says the smallest increase of social and emotional development into our global systems would have an exponential impact on human productivity and economic growth. I'm going to tell you right now, we are going to totally get rid of this. This is a redundant slide. Don't need it. It's got huge, grandiose statements once again. I must have been pretty darn confident in the solution that I was putting out there. But in terms of global systems, like, so what? Like, what global systems? There's so much going on here that doesn't make sense and it's not clear. So we're going to eliminate this. You're going to see how I do it. Next, I have a vision slide, and I tell you right now, this is a big fat X right here. No need to add a vision slide when you're explaining a pitch deck. You don't have time to go through all the vision, but look at this vision statement. Create the gaming industry for social emotional development. And I got this statement below. Gaming is the largest entertainment industry with 2.5 billion players. The problem is that this deck has nothing to do with the entertainment industry. So what does it matter if the entertainment industry, in terms of gaming, has 2.5 billion players? That means nothing to the problem or the solution. Therefore, this is a redundant slide. I'm going to be taking it out. Next, I've got this why now slide. And why now slides can be hit or miss. You want to use them very carefully because a lot of times the entire deck should be explaining why now. The problem with this deck is it's better for a slide if I was going to present this live. Fine, I could be giving voiceover. But when you're putting out a screener deck, you're sending it to an investor, you don't have a chance to give voiceover. So this slide doesn't make any sense whatsoever. So what? Remote work, social isolation, screen time, all that stuff, homeschool, these are all abstract concepts. It's not concrete enough. I know what they all mean in terms of my inside language, but I'm taking for granted that the investor will know what is in my head and can read my mind. That's just not going to happen. So this slide is going to be a complete X right there. Next is the why now slide part 2. This is for part 2. And this one is a little better because it actually shows a traction graph in the revenue that we made during a crowdfunding campaign that was launched, and it was funded 114%, and it launched at the start of COVID. Now, my voiceover for this is the fact that people told us that this business would not do well, and we we're crazy for launching it, and I launched a crowdfunding campaign to prove everybody wrong. In fact, this is what showed investors our idea was viable. When I showed them this graph, they were totally in because they saw we could actually make money in a really tough time when everybody else thought it's going to be very, very difficult. The issue is you don't have voiceover. So I haven't really explained what this slide is all about. It might look impressive, but what exactly does all this mean in terms of crowdfunding? Just too much that you have to infer or try and read between the lines that an investor is not going to do. So I'm going to have to clean up this slide and make it a lot more exact. Here is the product slide, and there's one major issue going on here that I pointed out on my other videos that you might immediately start to recognize. And that is this slide is talking to the consumer rather than the investor. And that is a big no-no. Consumer language is going to be completely different. Now, it's got some fancy words, but there's way too much inside information, in here, and it's like an ad. So it's game dynamics, great. I think investors can understand that. Plus brain science, plus social learning equals the fastest, fun, affordable neurogamification. Those are all inside language words that maybe you could sell if you saw this in an ad. Fastest, fun, and most affordable neurogamification. It's super exciting. But the investor, so what? How do you know it's the fastest? How do you know it's the funnest? How do you know it's affordable? You're making some pretty big claims. An investor is not interested in doing this. So we are going to have to work on all this down here. And so I'm going to give this slide a big fat F because it is focused more on the consumer versus the investor. We're going to redo this slide. But this one gets a little better. One of the reasons that we got investment is because we had already been doing this product. We'd already been selling it and gaining traction on it for a very long time. You're going to see our traction numbers in a moment. But here I have pictures of the products and I have all these people. So you see, here's me, and then there are actual people and clients that are playing this game. And so it gives a window into what is happening. Now, at that moment in time, if I was presenting this live, I used to do this thing where I would actually hold up the product and I would get the investor to play these games with me because I was able to. And there was a lot of magic in that. But as far as the screener deck is concerned, we're going to need a little more information over here. So I'm going to give this slide maybe a B+ because it actually invokes real life pictures to show that we are indeed selling this product. It exists in real life right now. This is a slide that shows more of the product in terms of how we actually use software to measure players and all that good stuff. It was impressive to look at and it's nice interface, but doesn't explain anything either. So again, I'm going to give this slide a big fat C because it just doesn't explain very much. Once again, too much voiceover has to be put into this slide for us to actually get the investor to understand without having to do too much work and risk losing them. Here's our market slide where I analyze the total addressable market. But when it comes to TAM, SAM, SOM, this is actually a SOM slide. And so it is not your TAM as I promised right here. So I'm going to show you how to actually redo this slide because this information is pretty darn good. In fact, I'm going to give it an A- because I remember working super hard to actually get all this data so I could crunch the SOM, but we need to add a TAM in there, and I'm going to show you how I do this in a moment. Here's the competition slide where we use a magic quadrant. This is another slide that I was pretty happy with because I did spend a lot of time really considering the X and Y axes here. And so we went from low social learning to high social learning to low technical and high EQ in terms of emotional learning. And see all these competitors. I remember spending a lot of time researching these competitors and going through all their websites and saying, okay, does it actually just involve screen time, staring at a screen? Are there real people involved? And how much emotional intelligence does it teach? And I began to understand our competition, which allowed us to separate ourselves out. So this slide, pretty darn good. I'm going to give it an A-. I wouldn't change it at all, only for the fact that competition might have changed. In fact, I know some of these competitors have changed, but pretty darn good as far as this slide is concerned. Here's the business model slide. This is how we make money and how we went to market at the same time. And there's a lot of good information here, but the way that it's organized and structured, it's too much. It's just a little too confusing. I'm going to give this a B. I need to clean this slide up a little bit more so it makes just a touch more sense. I will show you how to do that. Here's our team slide, pretty standard, straightforward in terms of who we were as far as our accolades, domain expertise. This was a good slide. I'll show you the reason here. This co-founder right here, she was a 2-time Olympic athlete, and she used our product, and I was able to say that her son was able to return to school after one session of UEQ. We were able to show real results, and it was powerful when she came on to pitch because she would tell the story of her son, and that was social proof. And that's one thing that you can use as far as a technique. Provide that social proof, testimonials from users. That's just going to help you impress the investor and de-risk it to let them know, wow, this product actually works. And there's something going on here that they need to explore more if all these people are saying all these great things. Team slide, pretty good. I'm going to give this pretty much an A, only because I was able to bring together a really amazing team and then highlight their domain expertise to show that we were a team that could be trusted with the money. Next team slide here just had images of me going out and showing more domain expertise. I spent 18 months in China training, and I was at Alibaba in their boardroom and training all these big companies. This is a little confusing as far as what actually is the training. Was it training the companies? What was happening there? So we're going to clarify this a little bit. But the fact that I moved to China and I got all this traction over there, this slide definitely deserves an A. I'm going to just pat myself on the back on this one because I went through great lengths to make this company successful. This slide was our technical partners and advisors. We had some pretty good ones. Over here just showed that these great organizations were really believing in us. I was particularly excited about the way that we met Dr. Ivy Bonk, who completely endorsed us, and we started using her grounded learning framework. As an author and educational psychologist, she was an authority, and so the fact that she came on board and she endorsed our product and was willing to be part of our team and an advisor to us, that spoke a lot to the investors. I'm going to give this slide an A, not because of the slide itself, but because of the technical partners and the advisory team that we were able to put together. Here's a traction slide. I was pretty exact with the numbers at the time. I would update this every time I presented or sent to an investor. Currently 5,652 users. Obviously, this was many years ago. 59 certified tutors, coaches, consultants, 46 teachers from 33 schools, 3 North America and 3 international. We were pretty excited about that. Just shows our reach, what we were able to do. One of the challenges with an ed tech type play is actually getting into schools, because schools can be really tough to break into. And we were able to do that, taking advantage of COVID, because we're reaching out to teachers because they were in their homes and they were teaching via Zoom. And so what we did is we offered free training for teachers who had to try and teach over Zoom. It was great. Here we are on the financial slide. 157,500 was already raised. We weren't seeking additional investment at the time. That was the latest version of the deck. And there you have it. Generally, this deck overall, I'm going to give it, let's say a C, because it was just average. There were a lot of good things, but there are some really ugly things that are put in there that kind of embarrass me and make me want to cringe. Now, here's a picture of Will Schroeder. He is the founder and CEO of Stardust.com. And the reason I put his picture up is because I've raised over 9 figures of funding for my startups, funds, and other people's startups in my day. I thought I knew how to do pitch decks until I came to Startups.com. And then I learned Will Schroeder's way of doing pitch decks. And now I just do the Will Schroeder's way. And by the way, when I do these pitch deck critiques and reviews, it all comes from Will Schroeder's course on how to do pitch decks, the pitch deck perfection. They call him the pitch deck doctor. So if you're interested, check out Startups.com. It's a little bit of a plug right there. But in the meantime, I do these videos so you can learn as we go and use these live examples. Here's what I've done. I'm going to show you the old slide, and then I'm going to show you how I improved the slide so you can see an immediate comparison of before and after. The old slide was human brain potential falls vastly short on this planet because most people lack access to social and emotional education. I did not like this whatsoever. You heard my beefs with this one. Here's how I improved it. 87% of U.S. public schools, representing 43.5 million students, reported that the COVID-19 pandemic negatively impacted their students' socio-emotional and behavioral development. This comes from the National Center of Education Statistics. You see the difference. Let me go back and forth here. Bang, first version, it was hyperbolic, talked about the planet and all that stuff, didn't have a lot of details as far as the severity of the pain, the consequences if we don't deal with it, etc. And now I've got a lot more exact. I've got figures in here, 87%, equating to 43.5 million students, showing how big the market is and the consequences negatively impacted their students' socio-emotional and behavioral development. Meaning if we do not solve this problem, we got a major issue on our hands. And I'm looking for the investor to resonate with this problem. If they care about students and their behavioral development, and maybe they've had kids that went to the COVID-19 lockdowns, they are going to resonate with this. And oh my goodness, 87% of US public schools, I'm setting up the market here, are saying that there is a problem. This is the updated problem statement that I believe would allow me to raise millions of dollars with this if this company was still going on right now, or I was even a part of it. Here's the old solution slide. We make brain training games that teach social emotional intelligence to play them online with children, parents, and leaders all around the world. Remember, we want the solution slide to be the inverse solution to the problem slide and be completely related. So here's my new one. We make EQ brain training games for socio-emotional development to improve behavioral outcomes and fill the academic gap caused by the pandemic. Remember, my problem slide talked about the gap in the educational system and socio-emotional development and behavioral outcomes. So I said, here's what we do. We make these brain training games to solve the problem that I put in the problem slide. And that's how you do a problem slide. Next, remember this extra solution slide? We're just going to delete it. Next, remember this extra vision slide? We're just going to delete it. Next, the why now slide. Remember this one? Guess what? You guessed it. We're just going to delete it. Here's the old traction slide. Currently, all these users, etc. I'm going to change this to be a lot more specific. Check it out. We have trained 5,652 students to date, 59 certified tutors, 46 teachers from 33 schools. Notice how I made it a lot more explicit in the headline. I didn't just put currently and waste space. I got right into it, and I was very direct. We have 5,652 students. Here are certified tutors working with those students, and then here are all the teachers that we're working with. Perfect. Here's the old slide. Remember, it was still missing information, made the investor think too much. I'm going to improve it by adding a headline. Like so, says straightforward, our crowdfunding campaign sold over $40,000 and validated the market. And there's the proof. I'm showing the receipts. So I'm making a statement with my headline, and then I'm showing the receipts. That is the way that you want to show the traction slide. And I put that arrow in there saying launched at the start of COVID, showcasing the fact that COVID actually accelerated our crowdfunding campaign. And by the way, this was not equity crowdfunding. This was rewards-based crowdfunding. Here's what happened. The people who participated in the reward crowdfunding campaign actually ended up becoming investors as well. It was pretty cool. Here's the old slide. Remember, this was more towards the consumer versus the investor. I'm going to change this to be a lot more direct. Instead, I took all those advertising, marketing slogans, and I put them together into a straightforward sentence. I said, our product combines game dynamics, brain science, social learning that investors will understand to train emotional intelligence for 10% of the time and cost. And we can show the receipts on it. This is an example of how to speak to an investor using hard facts, data, and numbers versus using marketing fluff. Investors aren't going to fall for marketing fluff. We are going to show them the goods and back it up. Here's the product slide with all the live pictures and pictures of the product. And it was lacking information. What I did is I just clarified the sentence. I said, tutors play our cards with students and teachers online. Here we go. Straightforward. You can see the pictures of the product as well as pictures of actual gameplay customers using the product. Here's the old product slide again with the software. I'm going to clarify. And now it says we designed our games to be compatible with psychometric assessments. We're showing a little bit of special sauce here and showcasing how we have taken assessments into account. We can use this data and software because that's something that's pretty cool. We can actually measure progress. Now we get to the old market slide where this was not the total addressable market. It was actually the SOM. Here's what I did. I just spelled it out. I said the total global market is 600 million students in school that speak English, Spanish, and Chinese. And then I narrow it down and say we will first focus on the 10.6 million upper income family students who pay for tutoring in the countries where we have distribution. Sometimes you want to show how much money you could be making, but other times you just show how many students there are to give people an idea how big. I did a little bit of both because if you look down here, you can actually see the amount of money that we would make in each market. But I made sure the TAM was calculated from the ground up, looking at how many students were in school that speak English, Spanish, and Chinese around the world. Why did I put English, Spanish, Chinese? Because our product is in English, Spanish, and Chinese. We're explaining this. But then I moved to the SOM and explain, all right, yeah, the market is super big. It's 600 million students. But then we're going to focus on the 10.6 million upper income family students who pay for tutoring in countries where we have distribution. Why is paying for tutoring so important? Well, they're going to spend money so they can spend the cash necessary to buy our product. And if we calculate all that stuff out, that's the market that we have access to. And basically, you can be making over $11 billion. This slide is designed to get investors excited and say, wow, that's a lot of people that you could be serving. It says we're going to focus on the 10.6 million. It's our go-to-market strategy. We're focused, but if we do our job right, we could bite into up to 600 million students. That's the purpose of a market opportunity slide. Here's our business model slide. Too confusing, too much information. The bubbles, yeah, I tried to get cute with that. I'm going to keep the bubbles in because I didn't want to redesign it. I'm going to show you how I made it a lot more straightforward. So I cut all the information down. I put a headline here. I said our business model uses channels, freemium pricing, subscriptions, and affiliates. If all they did was read this, then they're going to be able to understand. But they can look at the graphic to explain how we put it into this system that goes around like this and the details in terms of our markets, how we're doing freemium, how much we're charging, the different affiliate programs, and how much revenue share. And it shows the entire program put together. But once again, if all you do is read this sentence, then you're going to understand what our business model is all about. Here's the competition slide. I'm not going to touch it because I think it's pretty good, and I didn't want to do all the research to try and update it. But if you can make a Magic Quadrant like this and really take into account all these competitors and show the difference, figure out the XY axis in terms of how different you are, then you're going to be just fine in the competition slide. Obviously, this is different than the matrix of benefits, but I didn't want to do this because look at all the competition. So this was a better way to present what I knew that was different about us in the market. Here's the team slide. I'm going to leave it as is. You already know how I feel about it. Here's the next team slide showing my domain expertise, and I clarified the sentence here at the bottom. I said Ed Kang spent 18 months for training and business development in China. And all these pictures show, wow, this is actually going really good. And I got in front of some pretty darn big customers and channels. Technical partners and advisors, I'm going to leave this as is. Financials, I decided to change the financials a little bit. Even though we weren't raising money with this version of the deck, I'm going to show you how I did it. At the top here, I got raising 1.2 million to fill international orders and reach 50,000 MRR. I was going back from memory of what stage we were at, and we were facing a cash crunch because we didn't have enough inventory to fulfill global orders. We were getting translations in Mexico and China. We just couldn't print enough volume to keep our margins really good. So I just put this together and said, here's our use of funds. And then notice how I put at the bottom here, 157,500 was previously raised. Financial projections are available. This is what I like to do versus put all my financial projections into the pitch deck because some investors care, some don't, but they are available if investors want to see it. And then there's the contact information slide. There you have it. That was really rough in terms of going through that. I was cringing on the inside, but I hope it gives you a good look as to how much I have also improved on my journey as a founder. If this has been helpful for you, or if you have a pitch deck that you'd like to see critique, just send me a comment, like, comment, subscribe while you're there. But give me a comment, say I'd like to submit my pitch deck. I'll send you the information on how to get it to me. And I'm more than happy to do this type of critique and review for your pitch deck and give you all the help that you need to go and raise your pre-seed or seed round or any type of round. Really, I can handle it all. Hope this has been helpful for you. Thanks for checking it out. Excuse my voice. I'm recovering from a cold. Thanks once again. I'll see you in the next video.